welcome back. Today we're going to look at multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Now, one thing we need to remember is that multiplying and dividing rational expressions is the same as multiplying and dividing fractions. There's no difference, okay? So if we look at an example, 1/3 times 2/5, you multiply 1 times 2, 3 times 5, and you get 2/15, and that's your final answer. If you can reduce it, reduce it. Now, for dividing, when you divide fractions, you have to change the division to multiplication and flip your fraction. So now you can multiply 7 times 2 and 3 times 5. So now, let's take a look at an example for multiplication with rational expressions. Now, the steps are very similar to simplifying rational expressions. So first, factor the numerators and denominators. Find your excluded values by setting your denominator equal to 0. And then simplify any big ones. And if you have to rearrange the terms, that's fine, so that you can cross out your big ones. So here's your first example. Now, we have to factor the numerator, which gives us x times x plus 6. And then the denominator, I just expanded it. Now, x squared plus 7x plus 6, I need to use my generic rectangle. And I need to show what times what will give me 6, but adds to give me 7, so that's 6x plus x. So now I can factor into x plus 1 and x plus 6. Now, x squared minus 1, you can use a shortcut for the difference of squares. So it's just x plus 1 and x minus 1. Now I can write my denominators equal to 0, and I get -6, -1, and 1. Remember, just the denominators. Now I'm just going to rearrange all my terms so that I can line up my big ones, and now I see x plus 6 over x plus 6 and the x plus 1. So all I'm left with is x over x minus 1, and don't forget to include your excluded values as your answer. So now, division is very similar, except the first thing you have to do is just change to a multiplication expression by flipping that second fraction. And then everything else is exactly the same as multiplying rational expressions. So here's your first example. Change the division to multiplication and flip that second fraction. Now it just becomes a multiplication of rational expressions. So you need to factor out every single part of this expression. So the purple became x plus 1, x minus 5. Do the same thing for the denominator. Next fraction. You get x minus 2 times x plus 6. Then the last part of the denominator. So now, before I start crossing out my big ones, we have to do the excluded values. So if I look at all my denominators, I have x minus 2, x minus 5, and x plus 3. Now, because I flipped the fraction, I also have to include the numerator of that second fraction, which is the green one. So now I have all my excluded values, cross out my big ones, and I'm left with x plus 1, x plus 6 over x minus 2, x plus 3 with my excluded values. Well, that's all for this time. Thanks for watching.